We've been all looking for the silver bullet for our kids and grandkids, right? The silver bullet on how we keep the country the way we want it and how we have a state that makes sense. You want to know what the silver bullet is? The silver bullet is representation. Because if you're not represented and your vote doesn't count, then you have no other right. Does anybody want to dispute that? If you don't have representation and it's not adequate, and 1 for every million is not, we have a court case going right now. It's called Citizens for Fair Representation. That court case is for all Californians. Some of the plaintiffs are from the Bay Area. We have all different ethnic groups. We have African Americans. We have Chinese Americans. We have Latinos. We have American Indians in our particular court case. That is so that we can increase representation in the state of California. We have 40 senators and 80 assemblymen. That was capped in 1862. At the time, we had 417,000 people. Do the math. Since that time, we have graduated up another 35.5 million people with not one more representative in either house for our state. Is that tyranny or representation? Because if you can't be represented and the people who represent you cannot have an adequate way of communicating with you, how does it work? We have one senator, state senator, on the record saying, I don't talk to my constituents, there's too damn many of them. We have not increased representation by one person. However, in 1862, we had 50 judges. Now we got 2,500. Anybody wonder why the courts run everything? How does 120 oversee 2,500? Understand that this is a time now that we have to move into action, period. It's not next week. It's not one cause or another cause, because everything we talk about, whether it be what we're going to talk about tonight, whether it be vaccines, whether it be taxes, whether it be geoengineering, whether it would be CARB, well, no matter what it is, it falls under representation. Because anything that we have under representation is our avenue of expressing our will as the people. What's adequate? Well, originally in California, it was 1 for every 5,000. In the Senate, 1 for every 10 in the Assembly. If we did that in California, we'd have what? 16,000 representatives? The building would collapse from the weight. That's number one. We need representation. Article 4, Section 4, United States Constitution guarantees us a Republican form of government, not a democracy. A democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep trying to figure out what to eat for dinner. Because that would mean 51% of the people could say, okay, we want it this way, and we don't care. We want to kill this guy over here, and we want to do it, and that's just it. Because freedom is not liberty. Freedom is not liberty. Liberty is freedom with morality, responsibility, and accountability. That's what liberty is. Second thing we have to do is protect the Second Amendment. If we don't protect the Second Amendment, we can't protect anything else. Period. End of sentence. Why is it we have so many gun restrictions and gun laws? Do criminals pay attention to that? We have another court case, and Sally will talk about that when she comes up. She'll talk about it, give dates. We have a bus going, etc. The Second Amendment was put in there by our founders and has been in the Constitution to do what? Was it for hunting? It wasn't? Because what had happened is we had just had a civil war, not a revolution, because the people in America were English subjects, weren't they? We had a civil war, and when we had that civil war, after that, we decided what we're going to do is we have to have a federal government. We had like 14 presidents before Washington. Finally, in 1789, we scratched our heads and said, hey, we have to have something here. We've got to give a federal government some things they can do so we can trade with one another. So the money's the same. So we can deal with foreign countries. So we created the Constitution. The states created the Constitution. And when they created the Constitution, that put into movement a position of understanding who we are and what we are as a country. What's a synonym to a state? What is it? It's a country. Because when Jefferson and Madison talked about the state of Virginia, the state of South Carolina, they talked about a state likened to Spain, England, and France. So we're a bunch of countries that get together, we form this thing called the Constitution, we put that out there, and why did we put the Second Amendment in there? To protect us from who? The federal government. That's why it's there. Or did we think that the rabbits and the deer and the squirrels would take over the country? Second Amendment, without protecting that, we can't protect the rest. The third thing is the remedy for the problem. We know that even in court, we have three things we look at, right? You look at something to see whether or not it's going to be viable. Is it viable or not viable? The second thing you look at is has there been harm done to us? Yes. The third thing you look at is a remedy. The remedy for the top two is to separate and create another state and to create smaller states, like Washington's doing with the state of liberty, like New York is doing, like Oregon is doing, and like we're doing with the 23 counties. There is no fixing California. If you're a Republican, you have 10 senators out of 40. Why would the other 30 give up their position? Why would they give up power? If you're in the Assembly, it's 17. It's really 18, but Chad Mace is one biscuit away from being a Democrat. If that's the case, then how in the world do we get back a position of some sort of equality in both houses? It's not going to happen. Why should it happen? Why should it happen? Can somebody give me an instance when any state senator or any state assemblyman ever gave up any of their power? And I'll leave it with this. Understand at this point that we have not one thing, whether it's the food you eat, the paper you write on, the pen you use, the car you drive, the gas you use, the light bulb you use, the toys that your kids play with, the makeup you ladies use, the water you drink. There isn't one thing, name one thing, that's not controlled by either the federal government or the state. Name one. I asked a room full of assemblymen and senators and some congressmen the same question. They couldn't answer that either.